We're here to shine the light of truth. Welcome to Signs and Shadows, a Christian podcast where we explore the edge of the seen and unseen. From the Nephilim to near-death experiences, from ancient prophecies to modern-day miracles, we dig into us. We dig into end times events, spiritual warfare, and the personal testimonies that prove God is still moving. This is a space to grow in discernment, deepen your faith, and see the fingerprints of Jesus in this present age. Because in the shadows, his signs still shine.
So let's jump right into this. So where do you want to start at?
All right. My name is Kimberly. I am a 40-year-old child of God, a mother and a girlfriend from Alabama. I have not always had the very best life, but it has definitely not been the very worst life. I was raised in a Christian home with the best mother that you could have possibly hoped for, and a father who did what he thought he should when he thought he should if he was thinking. So I oh, I lost my mother 16 years ago tomorrow.
I'm
And
sorry.
when I lost my mother, I lost my entire mind. And instead of turning to the Father, I turned to bottles. Some of those bottles rattled and some of them sloshed. And that's how I numbed myself for almost 2 years after she passed. March will be 14 years since I have been off of pills, and I am ever so grateful for that. But let me give you a little backstory on that. So I grew up as the chunky kid that always got made fun of in school, and never really had a whole bunch of friends. I was always really likable, and everybody, I didn't have enemies, but everybody picked on me and everybody made fun of me, and that was
Yeah.
rough. So I have naturally curly hair, and until I was about 17, I didn't know how to tame it and make it not poofy and frizzy, and so that was a big poke fun at me point. And so that and my weight combined were pretty rough. So I wound up having gastric bypass surgery after I graduated high school, and I was 18 years old. I was the youngest person that my surgeon had ever operated on, and I wound up going from 330 pounds all the way down to 150 pounds, which
Wow.
made a world of difference in my life. It made me feel so much better about myself. It gave me so much more confidence, but it also lowered my tolerance
Mm.
for a lot of things.
So
And
did you have that surgery just for the benefits of losing the weight, or did you have it due to health?
I had health issues too. I had a lot of weight bearing knee pain, and
Gotcha.
my blood pressure was out the roof, all kinds of different medical things to go along with that. So it wasn't just for vanity,
Yeah.
but that was part of it. I'm not even gonna lie about it. But if I had to go back and do that all over again, I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because it was probably the best decision that I've ever made in my entire life as far
Oh,
as my
really?
health goes. So I did that, and then I went through massage therapy school and skincare school after I got out of high school, and was a massage therapist and esthetician for several years. And then whenever I was 23, I got pregnant with my son, and I'm ever so grateful for him. He's a wonderful kid. He's in the room next to me right now, wrangling the dog.
That's
But
awesome.
he is now 16 years old. He'll be 17 in July, and he's driving. He's doing all his own stuff. He's a very independent kid, and I'm very thankful that I have a relationship back with my son today.
Yeah.
Because 2 years after my mother passed away, DHR came in and took custody of my son for neglect, because
Mm.
I wasn't paying any attention to him. I wasn't trying to be a mother. I wasn't trying to raise a child. I
Yeah.
was trying to numb the pain of
So
losing my mother.
tell me how it was when you actually learned that you were going to be losing your child. Were you there? Was it a phone call?
I was. They came and knocked on my door, and my brother and his wife were there with them. So I know for a fact now. I didn't know at the time that they were the ones that had called them, but I do
Yeah.
now. And I thank him every time I see him. Thank you for calling him, because it changed my life. But she knocked on the door, and my ex-husband opened it, and he said, can I help you? She was like, yeah, we're here to speak with Mrs. Walker. And he said, okay. So I was sitting there. I had just finished taking my handful for the morning. And she said, we've been called to do a welfare check for him for neglect. And I said, I ain't neglected my kid. What are you doing?
Yeah.
In my major state of denial. I had done nothing wrong. I was just, I was a grandmother and
Yeah.
I was doing all the things I should have done, even though I was high as a kite whenever she showed up. So, you know, they had no doubt that they were there and doing the thing that they should have been doing. And,
Yeah.
that's, it was the worst and best day of my life. Um, how you can have both of those happen at the same time, it's really kind of confusing to some people. But not only did I lose him, but I knew in that moment that he was the only thing that I had ever had that was truly mine,
Yeah.
and I would do whatever it took to be able to be a mother to that child.
So let's back up for just a minute.
Okay.
When you were young, you were raised Christian, right?
Mm-hmm. I
Now,
was. Go ahead.
how real was God to you? Was it more of a thing of your family was getting you to go to church, or did you have an actual personal walk with God?
So people say that they were made to show up at church every time the doors were open.
Yeah.
My mom had a key. She was the piano player. So we were there even when the doors weren't open.
Yep.
But I was raised in church. I went in front of the church at age 7 and gave my life to Christ because whenever I was growing up, God was a condemning God. And if you
Yeah.
did anything wrong, you were going to die and you were going to go to hell. So I knew that Jesus died on the cross and that if I asked him to come in my life, that he would, and he would save me from that. So, and in my 7-year-old mind, all I was thinking is, I don't want to go to hell.
Right.
So I'm going to go up and I'm going to ask Jesus to come into my heart. Then I realized whenever I was in junior high school, I was about 12, 13. And I knew at that point that I was not saved at 7 years old. I had done it because I didn't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand everything that I needed to understand. So I got saved at 13 years old. And I was truly saved at that point in time. I knew everything that I needed to know. I knew that Jesus died on the cross for my sins, that he was raised again on the third day, and that he'd gone to heaven to prepare a place for me so that where he is, there I may be also. And I had a wonderful life. I did youth group. I did all the FHA, FCA, all the things whenever I was in high school so that, I could make sure everybody knew that I was Christian.
Yeah.
Not that you have to show for it to be real, but
Right.
I,
But
I
it's
thought,
reassuring to
those were
you.
the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the things that I needed to do to make sure everybody knew that I was Christian.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I truly believe that I have been saved since I was that age. But I turned my back on God. God never once turned his back on me because the moment that I cried out to him, he was right there. I felt his presence. And I knew when I cried out to him that if he was still in the miracle business, to make this one of them and not let me lose my life and not let me lose my son
Yeah.
permanently. I said, I will do whatever it takes for me to be able to be a mother to him. And I did. I took my very last pill the morning that they came and took him away. And she told me, she said, you need to go to a outpatient rehab and you need to go for a psych eval and you need to go and do parenting classes and all these things. So the very next day I called and got everything set up that I needed to get set up. And I don't know if you've ever been through withdrawals from drugs, but it's not a pleasant experience when you were taking pain pills that stopped everything and
I can
then
say I have not
you
done that, but
stop taking
I
those.
have
So
worked in
it's not pleasant.
of involuntary commitments with me being a police
Yeah,
officer, and I have
yeah.
had to walk through that with a suspect. And it's
Whew.
not something I would ever want to experience. And I take my hat off to you for coming through that because that is
Yeah,
rough.
yeah, it was
So
rough.
I'm going to jump back one more time on something.
Okay.
So you got on the drugs due to your mom passing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So can you think back to what was it that finally made you go, yeah, I'm going to do this? Have you
I
ever
didn't
thought
have
about it?
any. I didn't know. I just knew that I didn't want to feel.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to feel the good emotions. I didn't want to feel the bad emotions. I didn't want to feel anything.
But with you being a Christian, with you dealing with, because I lost my mother back in 2020, my father and both my grandparents. I think it's a lot of times when we're going into these really, really bad situations where we're losing a loved one, if we don't have our minds prepared before, it
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
is where it will break us. And so I've even tried to work harder on this now that I've actually gone through some true dramatic loss. And I try to teach my kids this because I know they're going to have to face it. And one thing that I think is horrible as a human being is that, each one of us is going to eventually face that death. And if we can catch it before we go to hopelessness, I think it's way easier to try to wean it and stop it before you go to that hopelessness. Because I've been to hopelessness one time. And I'll be honest, if God hadn't have pulled me out of it, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And so when you were trying not to feel anything, did you turn to God at all? Or was it that you were so wrapped up in the situation that you were like, I just got to get this off me?
Yeah. That was 100% it. And the night, so my mother had an autoimmune disease.
Hmm.
When she went into the hospital, they punctured a hole in her esophagus and she suffocated from the inside out. Her body filled up with air. You could
Mm.
push her hands and watch the air go out and then let it go and watch it fill right back up like a balloon. So it
Yeah.
was very, very traumatic. Like, not just mom got sick and mom passed away.
Yeah.
Mom had traumatic experiences. And I knew that she kept her pain pills in a certain place in her home. So the pills that got me started were the night that she passed away, in her drawer in her
Mm.
house, because everybody came over to the house and brought food and all the things. And I was like, I can't face 20 people in my mama's house right now. She
Yeah.
she just passed away and we just left the hospital. And then I get to her house and there's all these people and I'm like,
Yeah.
so it never crossed my mind to pray about it. It didn't.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth. My first thought was, I can't deal with this. I'm not gonna deal with this. Let me go take a handful of these.
Now, did you have any siblings or anything?
I do have a little brother, he's 2.5 years younger than me. His name's Jeremy.
Gotcha.
He's the one that called DHR to come check on my son, and he wound up in a safety plan with my little brother and his wife while I
Okay.
was going through all the stuff that I had to go through. So
So he didn't actually end up in state custody. It was,
no, no, no,
yeah.
no, no. He
Okay,
went into
good.
a safe. They call it a safety plan when
Yeah.
they go in with family. So that's what wound up happening. And thankfully, I didn't have to go through fighting the state to get him back, but
Yeah.
I did have to check all their little boxes.
I understand that. I've seen it quite a few times, actually.
Yeah,
So you said that you took the last pill that day. What made that moment so different from all the others?
they had
And
taken my child, my heart and soul lives in that little boy.
had you ever tried before this
Yeah.
to stop? So this was the wake up call that smacked you and was like, hey,
It was because you can't. I mean, nothing was gonna be bad enough for me to
yeah,
want, without something serious happening. Nothing was going to be bad enough for me to want to just, oh, I think I'll lay it down today.
yeah.
It had consumed me so much.
And you were to the
I
point
just
where you
didn't.
had to take it to feel normal, right?
Mhm. I
Yeah,
did. To wake up in the morning and to put my shoes on and go anywhere, do anything, I had to have at least two, if not three, of
yeah.
the
See that
whatever I could get my hands on at that point.
I think a lot of times people don't realize that part of addiction because I was naive to this until I had some in my
Oh,
family, and then I was dealing with it as a police officer because I was always like, why don't they just quit? And I understand it would make them sick or whatever, but I never understood that they get to such a point, and I don't want to speak out of place with this because I may be wrong on it, but from what I have witnessed and seen, is that just to function and to feel normal, you then have to be on the substance. And if you're not, then you're violently ill, cannot function, you can't do anything. So it's a loop that just is never ending. And you're killing yourself if you don't take it, and you're killing yourself if you do take it. So it's kind of like, which way do you go? And
yeah.
I mean, that's a horrible experience of having your son taken away, but it's amazing how God has turned your life around. Because, I mean,
Oh,
how I even met you was seeing your content on TikTok. And I mean, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I actually reached out to you and I was like, I would like you to come on the show so you can give your testimony. But I'll go ahead and let you have the floor back.
that's absolutely fine. So, like I said, I've been saved since I was 13 years old, 27 years, and I knew God, but I got angry and resentful when Mama died, and she was so much more than just my mom.
Yeah.
She was my very best friend, and I got married to my son's father in 2007, and my father had left her in the fall of 2006.
Mm.
So those last few months that I had at home, it was just me and my little brother was 2.5 years younger than me, so he was out having fun doing his college life thing and all
Mm.
that stuff. So it was most of the time just me and mom. If we weren't at work, we were there and we were cuddled up in the bed watching TV
Yeah.
together. So she was truly my very best friend, and I'm thankful that I got to know her at the
Yeah.
level that I got to know her after my father left, because she was able to come out of her shell and to be who she was instead of who she thought she had to be to please him, which she
Yeah.
thought would never be enough.
Hmm.
So that meant so much to me to get to know her and get to be there with her. Um, During active addiction, I completely turned my back on God. Like I said, I was so relieved when I cried out and he was still there,
Yeah.
because like I said, I turned my back on him, but he never turned his back on me. And no matter how far you get from the Lord, no matter how far you think you can run and try to get away from the love of God, you can't.
Yeah.
He's still there. He still loves his children. God sent his only son to die on a cross, be beaten, hung, and die. And I think about that from a parent's perspective now, because my son is my only child and I could not fathom how much love you would have for the entire world to allow your only child to be like. And I don't think people think about that.
I don't either. And I also
Like,
don't think that people think, actually, so, I do the Veil Breachers. And one of the songs
mm,
I haven't released yet is that he did that for me. And it goes through each part of the Bible. And he had me in mind when he was doing it. And that's like, I think we may have talked about this offline one time about the thorns. It's not really a wreath, it's more of an actual helmet
mm,
when they beat that into his head. And when I was doing my research on this, I was like, because I've always been like, even growing up in church, it was always depicted as pretty much like a little wreath that was set on his head and just kind of hit. But if you actually go and look what it was an actual helmet made out of those thorns. And they beat that into
mm,
his head. And then another part that I don't think people talk about enough is he was actually naked. Like
mm,
we always give the depiction that he has like a little loincloth on, but this man was beaten. He was
mm,
all for me and you. And I have gone and really, really thought about this. There is nothing in me that can make me do that.
mm.
And I am so at awe by Jesus for what he has done for me, what he's done for you, and everyone that's listening to this. You couldn't make my body physically go through it.
Mm.
And I mean, I have been in active shootings. I have been there where I was willing to risk my own life. But at no point was I being straight up tortured. And then the other thing that I stand so at all for is he never uttered a bad word towards them.
Mm.
Because I
Father,
mean,
forgive them, for they know not what they do.
yeah, because I mean, I'm guilty of this. Somebody cuts me off, I'm going to be saying everything under the sun. I mean, you catch me in the right moment, and I'm like, and that didn't even really hurt me. It just inconvenienced me, and I'm like, I, it's amazing to me what Jesus went through for us, and what's
Mhm.
amazing is he did it before we were ever even born. And then that's like what you were talking about is that God never left you.
Mm,
If you go back, there's a verse, I believe it's in Psalms that David's talking about, that If I'm down in Sheol, you're there. If I'm up in heaven, you're there. No matter where I'm at, you're there. And I've thought about that. And then I've even thought about it like all these people that are actually currently in hell, that are going to hell. God sees that.
And he knows and he feels like oh,
And
mm,
I'm just like, mm, I am at awe with how powerful and how mighty and holy Jesus is. And I'm going to kind of switch the subject for just a minute because this is the way that
okay.
I think. So, as Christians, a lot of times we're always talking about what Jesus did, but what
Mhm.
is he currently doing?
Oh,
Currently, he is the high priest of heaven. And that is something that a lot of people don't realize. Like right this second, while we're having this conversation, he's busy doing things. He is currently actively doing things. Um, I'm hoping to have one of these on in the future, but one of the things that's been intriguing me is that in the Muslim communities where they can't go and watch the internet, they can't do anything that has to do with Christianity. Jesus is showing up in their dreams.
mhm.
He is literally going where no man right this second can get the word of him to them and is giving these people hope. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on here because I was like, you have an amazing testimony. And I was like, the things that God did for you, if He did it for you, I know He can do it for others. And He's done a lot for me. He's never done it in this area for me. But that's one part of my show that I really try to do is to give people hope because I think just like reading the Word of God, it activates your faith. I think hearing the testimonies and how He's affected people's lives, it really builds your faith up. And when you're going through these hard times, or if you have a family member that's going through this hard time, you can sit here and go, He did it for her. He can do it for me. So I'll let you
Well,
have the floor back.
that's fine. So I went through all of my stuff with DHR, got my son back, and then in 2015, I lost my father.
Mm,
Well, there was still a lot of unresolved resentment from things that I had witnessed growing up and things that I had happened to me growing up, and didn't find out until later that he had given permission for those things to happen. Like there was a lot of built up hurt and anger. So I didn't turn back the pills, but I thought I can go down to the liquor store because that's legal.
yeah.
And that's not going to cause me near as many. They can't take my kid because of me drinking. Well, they didn't take the kid, but I wound up with 2 DUIs and
Mm,
spending some time in the county mountie, and
yeah.
all that great, encouraging, wonderful, uplifting part of my life. Yeah, no, I was begging for Clorox when they put me in the drunk tank the first time. I was like, there's stuff all over the walls, and it was.
Mhm.
I'm I'm not a princess by any means, but that was more than I ever wanted to have to like deal with in my life. That was awful. And those 7 hours were a very, very learning 7 hours. And obviously, I didn't learn enough because I had so much fun. I wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful that no matter what I chose to do, God never left me, and He never, thankfully, I never had to do any time,
Yeah.
just the drunk tank time. And so I learned at that point that I wasn't going to solve anything with a liquid, and that having something tragic to me happen, the only solution is to turn to God. No matter how hard I try to make it something worldly that can fix it, it's not going to be fixed unless I turn to God, turn to the Word, and turn to my Christian friends and family, and say, "Hey, I'm
Yeah.
going through this. I need your prayer. I need you to give me some guidance. I need help." So I was 30 when I lost Daddy, so I felt like I was an adult, but I
Yeah.
I still needed an adultier adult to help me
Yeah.
adult.
I know
So
what you mean.
it was like, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
And my father and I had tried to repair some things along the way from the time that Mom passed until he passed. He had a motorcycle accident,
Mm,
and that's what wound up ending his life. But I just I had so many things that were running through my head, and I thought, I can never forgive you for the things that you did and that you allowed to happen to me.
Yeah.
How could a father do that? How could he allow people to do the things that were done? Like
Do you mind expanding on that at all?
I still to this day. Um, so when I was 4, I caught him and my babysitter having intimate moments. He was home because his back was hurting.
Mm.
And so the babysitter still came over because daddy wasn't going to be able to take care of his back was hurt. He couldn't go to work. He couldn't pick the kids up and play with us and da 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 da. So
Yeah.
the babysitter still came. And so I had gone and laid down for nap time. And whenever I woke up, they never knew that I saw them,
Yeah.
but I saw them. And I knew that his no parts and her no parts were not supposed to be touching.
Yeah.
Then,
How did
whenever
you
I was
at that
already
how did you at that young age make the decision not to bring that up?
I don't even know. I mean, like I said, I was 4, so I don't
Yeah.
know if it was I was scared to tell Mama because I was afraid of what Daddy might do,
Oh, I got you.
or what. I don't really know what went through my head because I was very young, but I
Yeah.
do remember it like it was yesterday. And I'm 40 years old. That's
Yeah.
one of those things that is scarring. So I never said anything about that. And then whenever I was out of high school and already into massage therapy and skincare school, my father was working at a nuclear plant here locally. Well, one of the men that worked there with him lived like 2 hours away and they worked funky shifts. So whenever they were on schedule, then that man would stay at our house.
Gotcha.
Well, come to find out, he and my father were doing things as well. And part of that bargain was that if he and dad were able to do things, then he was allowed to do things to me,
Mm.
which I stopped very abruptly and told my mom about it. And she was like, "Oh, Kimberly." And I said, "No, Mama, you don't understand. When you wake up in the morning and you have a man with his parts in your face
Yeah.
telling you to do things, um, you kind of wonder what's up."
Yeah.
So I didn't know until after Mom and Dad had divorced that that was what had happened, and that he had told him that if he could do what he wanted to do, then he could do what he wanted to do. So it
Mm.
was it was bad, and I never allowed anything to happen,
Yeah.
but I did wake up with that
But that's
situation
crazy
on
because he's
more
supposed to
than
be
one
protecting
occasion.
you.
Yeah.
And like, did you
So
forgive him?
I wanted to, and I being human, you want to forgive and you want to be able to let things go. But I've still to this day, even though he's dead and gone, I still can't. Like, I don't understand how you could, as a parent, give someone permission to hurt your child.
You have to. So I had a very, very rough upbringing with my father,
Yeah.
and my father's life was cut short because I really think, how you plant seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those seeds grow and then they come back. And my father was extremely abusive, verbally and physically. And my parents separated when I was about 14, and it was because of me and him getting almost into a fist fight. And he was heavily on drugs. Um, when my parents separated, I didn't have much to do with my dad at all. My brothers and sisters were young enough, they still had to go over there. I tried
Yeah.
reaching out to my dad one time when I'd gotten in some trouble, and my dad took me out to dinner. We sat down. Everything I told him, he just went and tried to use it against my mom. So I was like, that's the last time I'm ever giving you a chance.
Right.
Well, you fast forward till I'm about 21, and I was actually working, I was a supervisor for security at a data center, and a sheriff deputy shows up and served me papers saying that my grandmother is getting custody of my father. And I was like, what? Like, I've never even seen this before. So I start trying to figure out what's going on, and they're saying that he's over in this place called Creedmoor, North Carolina, which I'd never even heard of this place. So I show up the next day. I was off the next day, and I show up, and it looks like a retirement home almost. And I see him sitting there. Now I hadn't seen him at this point in probably 12 years. He looked like my grandfather. And I walk up to him, and I'm like, "So what's going on?" Grandma says that she's getting custody of you. And I was like, "What does that even mean?" And he's like, "Let
Yeah.
me see that," and snatches it from me. And by that time, a nurse comes out and is like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm his son." And she's like, "I only knew of him having a daughter." Well, come to find out, so my dad was married once before. They hadn't told any of them on the medical staff or in any of his notes that he had 5 other children. So they were all shocked. And come to find out, my dad was kicking this guy off property. And apparently the next day, it was on my dad's 50th birthday that the guy waited for him by a vehicle. They don't know if he beat him with a gun or if it was with a pipe, but it made it where he was in a kind of like a vegetable state. It was odd because the first time I met him or seen him after this, he seemed like normal self. But then when I went back out there and started talking to him, he was almost like a robot. And like when they told him to eat, he had to literally be told to put the food in his mouth and to pull the food off and then to chew. But then every once in a while, it's like a robot is short circuiting. He would act normal for about a minute or two, and then he would go right back into this. But he had major brain damage and major brain swelling, and they had to go and do this thing where they take part of I think it's part of the bone from part of his hip to regraft onto his skull. But he ends up passing away about 10 years after this. But I had a lot of hate in my heart and a lot of problems with the core of me said that all my problems was my father. And looking back, a lot of the reason why I am the way I am is because of my dad. And like even when I went to have my first son, I remember telling she was in labor for a long time. It was like 26 hours and it was snowing that day. And they finally told her just go ahead and go to sleep. We'll help induce you in the morning. So I went downstairs, and when I went downstairs, I ended up running into an old friend, and I was telling him, I'm worried about becoming like my dad. I was like, I never had a good dad. I was like, so how do you be a good dad? I was like, because his dad was my basketball coach, and he had a good dad. And he goes, Bud, just by you being worried about that, he goes, you're going to be a good
You're
dad.
going to be a good dad.
And so now fast forward back to me sitting in this room with my father, and I have the chance to say anything that I want to him. And I know it's the last time I'm ever going to see him. So I asked him, I said, do you care if I pray for you? And I asked God, I said, God, I know that most of my life I blamed most of my problems on you, on this man that's sitting here before me. And I said, but I'm asking you to forgive me for that. And I said, I'm asking you to forgive him for the wrongs that he's done with my relationship and with my other brothers and sisters. And I said, Father, I ask you to take that burden off of me and don't allow me to pass it down to my children. And I told my dad, I sat there and I wanted to touch my dad's face because even though there was a lot of animosity growing up with my dad, I didn't know what his face felt like. And so I touched his face, and the thing that blew my mind was that it was just like touching my face. You feel a little bit of stubble there, and I'm like, that's crazy. And it humanized him, where a lot of times throughout my teenage years, in between dealing with my mom, with how bad my dad was, and dealing with everything of him, I realized I'm the same way as my dad. And I had to forgive him. And once I finally did, like, it's one of those things that I told him, I said, I will never allow you to see my children because I can't allow you into their lives. I said, and because of how you act. I said, but the thing I am going to do is I'm 100% forgiving you. And I said, I'm walking in faith with this forgiveness. And I was 21, I'm 38 now. And I can say that honestly, by the time that he passed in 2020, I was perfectly okay with it. And I had done my best to protect my children from my father, but I had also gotten rid of that hurt because that hurt is holding you back. And one thing that's really important to me, and this is the reason why I'm even bringing up all this, you can tell you still got a little bit there. And you got to remember that when it's talking about like tithing or bringing an offering, that if you've wronged your brother or if you have a hurt there, go and make it right. And now that he's passed, it's probably going to be even easier because now all you got to do is talk to God and be like, God, I want you to just take this part of my heart, take it away, and Lord, allow your work to be in me. Because when you hanging on to it, it's a weight there. And a lot of times you won't even realize it's a weight until you finally get it off. And then once you get it off of you, you can breathe better. You can sleep better. And so I would just encourage you to work on that part because your children will see the difference And because I think a lot of times the hurt that we have ends up becoming a generational curse. Because even if we don't do the exact same things that we were hurt by us holding that grudge, it ends up extending to our children. And then, and you see it function in different forms. I call it a little tree because it's planting that seed, and then you see the tree, and then there's a different branch here and a different branch here, but it still leads to the same problem. Yeah, the same root. So, with all this being said, if someone listening is at their breaking point right now, what do you want them to know about God?
Life's going to throw you curves. Every single turn you make, life's going to throw you curves. But I promise that you can deal with them much better through the Word of God and prayer and trusting in Him than you ever could in a bottle of any kind, whether that's a rattling bottle of pills or a sloshing bottle of alcohol. God is the answer to every obstacle that life can hand you. And no matter how far you go from Him, He's still there and He still has His hand out and He's reaching down, waiting for you to reach up and grab it.
Amen.
A lot of people say, that an addict should just quit, like you said earlier. Why don't they just quit?
Yeah.
And why can I try so hard to get them help, but they won't stop? Because until you hit rock bottom, until you are at the very lowest point of your life and you realize that the only way you have to go is up or into the ground, that's when you realize that God's the only answer. And He will pull you out. He will pull you out of the
Someone needs
hell
to
that
hear
you are
that right
living in.
now.
Yeah, He will. He'll pull you out of the hell that you're living in on earth. And if you have friends or you have family that you have tried and tried and tried to get stopped and they won't stop, know that there is hope, but they have to want it for themselves. You can't want it enough for them. It's not possible. But there is hope through the Savior.
100%. I want to tell you, I really do appreciate you trusting in God and also trusting me to be able so you could share your story because I love that the Lord is using me and He's using this show. And I really do appreciate you trusting us to put your story out. And thank you for doing that. And thank you for being so open and bold. Did you want to talk about what you're trying to work on now? Or you want to hold that
I
off?
am, the Lord has told me that I need to open a recovery facility. I don't know if that's just going to be a recovery facility for women or if it's going to be for struggling teens. I'm not really sure what direction. My job is to know the what and the why, not the when and the where and the how.
Yeah.
So I am trusting in Him to provide all those answers, and I know that in His time He will. Um, I don't know if it's something that I just need to start with an outreach and then build into. Like I don't have all the answers, but I have no doubt in my mind that the Lord has told me that this is the direction that I need to go. So I'm excited about what the future holds, and I'm excited about the multitude of lives that I know can be changed by not only my story, but by the love and the strength of God.
Yes. Amen.
So we'll see what it holds. We're
Well,
just gonna go with it.
thank you again for coming on. Is there anything else you would like to say or anywhere
God
you'd
bless
like?
you all, every single one of you. And I don't know your story. If you want to reach out to me, that's more than absolutely fine by me. I know that if I hadn't had someone there to talk to that had been through the same things that I have been through, that I would not be where I'm at today. Um, People sharing their hope and their strength and their journey through faith in God to be a recovered alcoholic or a recovered, and I know you're not supposed to say recovered because we're never 100% guaranteed that we're done with it. It's a choice that you have that you can make or you can not take. But if I hadn't had someone there to lead me through, then I probably wouldn't have been the person that I am today. So if you ever need anybody that you can talk to, I'm here and I'm more than willing to share my testimony with you in a more personal setting If you have questions that you want to know answered, let me know, and I'll be happy to do that as well.
And where can people find you?
People can find me on TikTok as Kimberly was a mother trucker. I completely didn't tell anything about my trucking experience, but I have been a truck driver for the past 7 years. And I recently resigned from that position, and I am doing only online things now and working on doing whatever I need to do in order for this recovery center to be a reality. So
that's amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on the show.
I am who I am.
Before we continue, I want to take a moment to share something connected to the heart of this show. The Veil Breachers is a music project from the same place as Sign and Shadows, where truth collides with darkness, where spiritual warfare is real, and where light pushes back. Our latest song, Praise You As I Die, isn't just music. It's worship in the fire, faith under pressure, praise when everything says quit. If you've ever walked through grief, spiritual battle, or the kind of darkness that forces you to cling to God, this song is for you. You can find the Veil Breachers, Praise You As I Die, right now on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and everywhere you stream music. Check it out after the episode. And remember, the battle is real, but so is the victory.
The earth is shaking, kingdoms falling, rumors of war, your word fulfilling. Hearts grow cold, deception rising, but I cling tight to your promises. They can take my breath, but not my faith. They can take my life, but not your name. Though the mark divides all of mankind, I choose the Lamb and leave the world behind.
Storm clouds gathered, I'm not afraid. You are Savior, you already overcame.
I will praise you as I die. Let my last breath glorify. When the sword is at my neck, I will stand, I won't deny. If the end is drawing nigh, Jesus, you're my battle cry. Under heaven's raging sky, I will praise you as I die.
Yeah, end times, headlines, visions in my mind, mark of the beast, you ain't taking mine. Lord to the king, never bow to the throne. The world can kill me, but God takes me home. Let him hunt, let him rage, let him scream my name, and accuse me with the fire and the death and the blame. But I saw the lamb break the seals of the scroll, so I trust in the blood that redeemed my soul. Persecution, I call it promotion. Death ain't a threat when the grave's been broken, so I'm marching, faith, no fear inside. I will praise my God as I testify.
I won't bow to the beast, no sir. I won't bow to the beast, no sir. If I die for the Christ, so be it. If I die for the Christ, so be it.
He's my Savior and King.
That's right,
He's my Savior and King.
that's right.
I will praise as I die.
All day,
I will praise as I die.
all day. Left, right, left, marching on. Heaven's where I make my throne. Left, right, left, till I die. Lift his name and glorify.
When every tear has hit the ground and the trumpet shake the glass.